भूर्भुवः स्वः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात्. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Sai Ram, sisters and brothers. Now I am starting my 12th video on Sai Gita. So here it goes. There are many beings but only one underlying divinity. If a person has not conquered his own mind and senses, how will he ever be able to taste the sweet nectar of divinity? To achieve control of the mind and senses, it is important for you to know the deeper reason for all your efforts. The ultimate goal of your life is to realize the one divinity that underlies everyone and everything. You must become established in the one Atmic principle that exists in every heart. The sun is one for everyone. There is not a separate sun for different beings and for different species in different parts of the world. There may be thousands of different vessels all filled with water standing on the ground. Some will be earthen pots, some will be brass vessels, and some will be silver or copper ones. Above them in the sky is one sun, reflecting itself in all of these vessels. From the many reflections, it would appear that there are many suns, but even though the vessels are all different and the reflections are many, the sun which is being reflected is only one. The values of the vessels will also be different. The silver vessel is very costly compared to the earthen one. Nevertheless, the sun which is being reflected is one and the same. Similarly, right from the highest scholar to the most ignorant dullard, right from the wealthiest man to the poorest beggar, from the greatest emperor to the humblest citizen, the bodies and the apparel in which they are clad will be different, but the one who is the resident of all these bodies, the Atma, which is reflected in all these bodies, is one and the same. The clothes that you wear and the jewelry with which you adorn yourself may be very expensive. A poor person would not be able to have such costly things, but these are just like the differences in the values of the vessel. The divinity inside all these bodies is only one. Once you become aware of this truth and recognize the unity in all beings, you will be able to exercise sense control quite easily. Instead of seeking to control others, you will seek control over yourself. Instead of correcting others, you will take charge of your own mind and senses. Defects and faults abide in everyone. Then who is to exercise power and authority over whom? If a person has committed some mistake, it may be your job to show him the right way, but your main focus should be to correct yourself. Discharge your duty, do your assigned work, but always remember the one divinity resident in everyone. Only wisdom can conquer ignorance. Ignorance is very deep. It covers your inner truth. It is impossible for you to remove this thick layer of ignorance by encountering it head on. In the early morning at 7 o'clock, although you may be only 5 feet tall, your shadow will be 50 feet long. How can you reduce the length of the 50 feet shadow? Is it possible to fight with it? If you admonish it, will it listen to you? If you criticize it, will it be reduced? Whatever you do, its length will not come down, but as the sun goes on steadily rising, the length of the shadow diminishes automatically. Once the sun occupies the position overhead, the shadow by itself will have come down to your feet, obliterated itself and disappeared from view. You may be 5 feet tall, but your ignorance is 50 feet long. Therefore, you have to develop inner inquiry so that your wisdom will grow. As long as the sun of wisdom goes on rising, ignorance will go on diminishing. In this way, your ignorance can be totally destroyed. This is one method. There is still another method for dealing with this shadow that is 50 feet long. You realize that you cannot conquer it by turning towards it and trying to run over it. You realize that by facing it, your shadow will not get any shorter or disappear from you. But if instead of turning your face towards your shadow, you turn your face toward the sun, then your shadow will automatically be behind you, and however big it is, you will not be aware of it anymore. It will continuously remain out of sight. Therefore, instead of thinking of this ignorance, always think of the Son of Wisdom. That way you keep the ignorance behind you and the sun in front of you, and you will not be affected by this shadow anymore. This means always turning your vision towards God. Both methods should be employed. Always turn your wisdom towards God and use your intellectual and intuitive fac- faculties to increase your wisdom. These are two major yogas or spiritual paths, and path of devotion and the path of wisdom. If you do not turn towards God and increase your wisdom, but continue to turn toward the world, then as with the shadow and the setting sun, your ignorance will go on increasing and you will get lost. Therefore, Krishna warned Arjuna, use your buddhi, your highest intelligence, to increase your wisdom. That way your ignorance will get destroyed. The moment your ignorance is destroyed, duality will vanish. When duality goes, your attraction or repulsion to sense objects will also disappear. And once these attachments or revulsion, revulsion to objects disappear, your body consciousness will also disappear. If there is no body consciousness, then there is no sorrow. Develop wisdom through inner inquiry. We have seen if you want to overcome body consciousness, you must first overcome your attraction or repulsion to sense objects. Once this goes, duality will be destroyed, and when duality disappears, ignorance will vanish. This will all happen when you develop wisdom. Therefore, the Gita has declared that it is through wisdom that you will be able to destroy ignorance and reach your ultimate reality. What is this wisdom that you should develop? Can it be gained by acquiring secular knowledge in the world? No, it does not deal with external phenomena at all. It deals with only internal experience. It is only when you have developed self-confidence, confidence in the indwelling Atma, that you will be able to develop a strong confidence in the Lord. If you do not believe in yourself, you cannot truly believe in God. When you have faith in yourself, then you can have faith in God. To develop such a firm belief in yourself, to realize the indwelling divinity, which is the same in every one, you need to constantly engage in the practice of self-inquiry. From the moment you get up in the morning until you go to bed at night, you go on saying I, and myself and mine. But even when you say I, do not you know who this I really is? You say, this is my body, this is my intelligence, this is my inner feeling, these are my senses. But do you ever ask yourself, who am I? If you never inquire into your own truth, what good is all the education you have acquired? If you will not make the effort to inquire into your truth, then who else will come and remove the writing that is on your forehead? Who will remove the karma that is imprinted there? Instead of engaging yourself in self examination, you just allow impure thoughts to enter your head, and so long your thinking becomes dull and null. You should realize that when you say, this is my handkerchief, the one who is the you is different from the object, which in this case is the handkerchief. You say, this is my body. You do not say, I am this body. When you say, this is my body, you are declaring that you and the body are different and separate from each other. If you then inquire, who is this you, who is saying this, then you will be led to the indweller. You must inquire who this indweller is. In other words, who is owning all these things. When there is an owner can there be any meaning in saying this is my property, this is my land. Only the master who owns the property have the right to say this property is mine. For the body mind, this master is the indweller. This master will not undergo any change. He will never leave you. Therefore, by means of inner inquiry, you should try to discover and recognize this unchanging, indwelling divinity which is your true reality. Every spiritual aspirant should take up inner inquiry in all your spiritual practice that you engage in. You should spend three-fourths of your time on self inquiry. Then you will get the full results only by using your time properly, by sanctifying your body and by sanctifying all your actions will you be able to reach the goal. The most important reason for all these sorrows you are prone to is the weakness you develop because your senses are not under your control. Use the strength you have to keep your senses under control. Put your mind on the right path and develop a firm resolve. You will gain great strength thereby. The Gita declared that you should control the senses, not that you should destroy them. The Gita does not say that you should renounce action, but that you should renounce the fruit of your action. Therefore, you have to do your work. All there is no need for the Lord to perform any particular work. You will find that He is working all the time. If He is working constantly, should you not be working also? Perform your work and use all your senses correctly. Use them within the proper limits for the purpose for which they were intended. Do not ever use them in the wrong way. This is the message of the Gita. To know the divinity is to become the divinity. Krishna said, if you are a slave of your desire, you will be slave of the entire world. But when you make desire your slave, the whole world will be yours. Embodiments of love. Have faith in the indwelling divinity, the Atma, which is the basis of every happiness and joy that you will ever experience in the world. People are suffering immensely because of their erroneous belief that the joys of the senses and delights of the worldly objects are real and will last. But these are only temporary and cannot last. People have not inquired to find out what is the basis for the joys associated with the sense objects and all the luxuries of the world. The Atmic light get hidden by the impure senses. In the Gita, the human body has been compared with a container having 10 holes within which an inextinguishable light. If you were to cover this container with a thick cloth, then you would not be able to see any light shining through it. If you, however, you gradually lift this thick cloth covering the container, then you would be able to see the light shining from each of the holes. At that point, it looks as though there are 10 lights, but when you take the container away and leave the light, you realize that there was only one light. That one light shining within the container, which is the body, is the self-effulgent Atma. The splendorous light of the Atma has been covered by the body and its sense organs. There are five gross and five subtle sense organs associated with the human body, which can be thought of as the 10 holes in the container through which the light of the Atma shines. This container of the body, in turn, has been covered by the thick cloth of minus and attachment, which obscures the pure light of the Atma. First of all, you must remove the cloth of selfishness and minus. This minus stems from ignorance. It is a form of delusion which makes you feel separate and keeps you bound up in duty. It arises from the cosmic illusion or Maya. Maya can be thought of as the outer vesture or garment of God. God has been described as having illusion as his outer form. This illusion veils and hides him from view. Once you take away this cloth illusion, then the inner light becomes revealed, shining radiantly through the sense organs. The light which you see through your eyes is but a reflection of the one self-effulgent light, divine light that is inside you. Every sensation you feel through your skin or hear through your ears is but a reaction to that same inner light, and every sound which you make through your mouth is but the resound of all divine inner light. All that you have been able to do and experience through the senses is only a reflection, a reaction, or a resound of that one splendorous radiance which is your immortal self, the Atma. But as long as you still identify yourself with this container of the body, you will not be able to see the one Atmic light. Only when you identifies yourself completely with the Atma, will you be able to experience this one Atmic light instead of a multiplicity of many different lights. See unity on see unity in all diversity. Up to this time, you have been seeing diversity and separation in what is actually unity. But now you have to correct this wrong vision. The ancient wisdom teachings have emphasized that you will not be whole until you can see only unity in the illusion of diversity that appear to be around you. When can you see and directly experience this unity? Only when you destroy your sense of identity with the body, then you will be able to experience all as one. It is Maya which causes this delusory experience of seeing diversity when there is only unity. But it is the universal experience of the great sages and mystics that there is only the unity to be found within all the multiplicity of the world. This unity is the basis of everything everywhere. It is the Atma. It has to be experienced in every object, in everything. This is the sum and substance of the Gita, which itself is the essence of all the ancient wisdom teachings. The Gita has described the experience of unity as yoga, the process of becoming united with and immersed in the one divinity. You must make an inquiry, taking instance from your own daily life to see how you can experience this oneness within all the diversity and thereby discover the divinity which is inherent in everything. Take the example of some food preparations. For instance, you can consider some different types of sweets, such as cookies, cakes, candies, desserts, and all other sweets which you might enjoy. The forms and names of all these items are different, but the inner substance which gives them all their characteristics, sweet taste is the same. That underlying sweetness comes from sugar. It is because sugar is present in these items that there is sweetness in all of them. Flour by itself has no sweetness, its taste is insipid, but when flour is associated with sugar, then you enjoy it as a sweet. It does not matter what flour you use, whether it comes from rice, wheat, or other grains. When it is associated with sugar, it becomes sweet. Similarly, the objects of the world are tasteless and insipid, but because the sugar of divinity has been mixed in with them, you can enjoy so many things in the world, considering them desirable and sweet. You are a human being, not an animal. Do not waste your life running after worldly enjoyments. Realize the truth that you did not get this human birth for the sake of enjoying food or sleep or wasting your time on meaningless activities or entertainment. When you look around, you can see any number of animals, birds, and worms which live only for the sake of food. Why have a human life if you use it only to enjoy the pleasures that animals, birds, and worms enjoy? What is the use of acquiring a higher education and then spending your time reveling in lowly pleasures that even without benefit of higher education the animals, birds, and worms are also indulge in? What is the special ideal which has been held out for humanity. What is the inner significance of the statement that is extremely difficult to obtain a human life? Human life has not been given so that you can act like an animal. Human life has not been given so that you can act like a demon either. Man has taken human birth in order to realize his divine essence. Human life has been given to you so that you can reach the highest plane of God consciousness. The same thing was taught by Jesus when he said, "Man does not live by bread alone." You have to attain an achievement which is of extraordinary significance. You have been given life so that you may realize the divinity which is inherent within you. Your primary duty as a human being is to give up the things which are impermanent and attain those things which are permanent. But today you are not aspiring for such extraordinary qualities. Instead, you are living a wasted life filled with attachments. This was also Krishna's admonishment to Arjuna. He said, Arjuna, this body consciousness and attachment to the body is binding you. You are wasting your life, giving up your attachment to the body now. You have to inquire why you develop attachment to the body. Consider this small example. Everyone knows that it is not right to utter a lie. Many people at some time take an oath resolving that they will not lie from that moment on, but the very next day they get into a conversation, they tell a lie. Or take a businessman who knows that he should not deceive. He makes a resolution that he will limit himself to earning only a fair and modest profit, but the very next day he resort to unfair means, or a person decides he should not gossip or hurt others with his talk. Yet, within minutes he has totally forgotten his woe and begins to criticize someone. Man seems not to have a steady mind at all, and without a firm and steady mind, he is unable to control his actions. On a holy day, he may feel that he should be thinking of nothing but the Lord and abstaining from taking any food. But after some time, he excuses himself and says, let me at least have a few biscuits and with the tea. When man is constantly deviating in this way from his own firm resolutions, there must be some very powerful entity which is working inside him, constantly defeating him. If there were not such a powerful instinct or urge working within him, he surely would not have changed his resolve and he would have been able to use his will to hold to his announced discipline. Desire makes you break your resolutions. So there is some power, some force that is hidden within man that he is not able to control or understand. If he thinks deeply and tries to discover just what exactly this power is, he will find that it is related to three worldly qualities which are inherent in the human condition. These three attributes which comprise worldly life characterize the mind and its thinking process. They are the slothful or dull or active or passionate, and the serene or calm tendencies. These three attributes in various combinations will dominate a person's life. They will be fostered or diminished by the quality of the food taken in and by one's tendency towards indulging in or depriving oneself of sleep. Of these three attributes, the first two qualities mentioned, that of slowness and furious activity, are likely to encourage you to take the wrong path. Slothfulness giving rise to dislike, repulsion, and anger. An excessively active nature gives rise to attraction, desire, or attachment to worldly things. Desire is the most powerful urge making man give up all his resolutions. It acts as the leader or captain of all the bad qualities. You can plan your certain programs to defeat your external enemies, but all your plans and strategies will be of no use until you have conquered your inner enemies. Once you have yielded to your inner enemies, how How can you hope to conquer your external enemies? When these inner enemies have subverted your will, how can you be power and defeated all your good intentions? How will you be able to challenge and conquer your external enemies? This captain of the bad qualities desire has made a hole and entered the house. The others, like hatred, anger, greed, and jealousy, then follow him into the house. The moment these enemies have entered into you, you lose all your discrimination and wisdom. The moment you lose your wisdom, you also give up your resolution. Therefore, the most important reason for not fulfilling your own firm resolve is the welling up of desire. Let us try to understand this further. When palaces are constructed as residences for great emperors and kings, there is usually a fortified wall surrounding the palace, protecting it from intrusion from outside. There will be a number of guarded gates within this wall. Similarly, a temple is usually situated within a compound having a protecting wall around it in which there will be number of gates or doors. The body can be thought of as the compound wall enclosing God who resides inside the temple of the heart as the Atma. An external fortress or a temple will be constructed with the help of bricks, cement, sand, and mortar. But this temple of the body is constructed out of flesh and blood. In this body of flesh there will be number of gates in the form of the sense organs. It is through these gates of the senses that desire and the other bad qualities break in and invade the inner sanctuary. The body is given to you to realize the indweller. The body gains its luster from the indweller who is God. As long as the indweller resides in the body, it will be full of fragrance and full of life. The moment this indweller leaves the body becomes foul and offensive. Without the indweller, the body is a reprehensible thing. Far from being fragrant with perfume, it just emits a bad smell moment to moment. The process of transforming a body with such repugnant qualities into an instrument for serving mankind and realizing the divinity can provide great joy and inner satisfaction. But man thinks of his body only as a means for giving him physical pleasure, and so he uses his body primarily in self-defeating ways. Krishna admonished Arjuna that this was not the mark of a real human being. He told Arjuna, the body has been given in order to understand the indweller. Arjuna, use your body only for that sacred purpose. Animals and birds have not been given this discriminating power. You have the capacity to experience great things through your unique ability to inquire and engage in self examination. You have to use all your powers to understand the principles which constitute human nature. First, you must understand the power of worldly desire which makes you give up all your resolutions. Of course, there must be some desire. Without desire, you cannot live for even a moment. But you must use all your desires for good. Your desires should be to help others. That constitutes living as a true human being. If you do not have the welfare of the whole society as your goal, you cannot be called a human being. Since you are born in society, since you live in the society and get so many benefits from society, you have to serve society. In serving society, you will be serving the Lord. But be it a small job or a big job, whatever you do must be done for the sake of the Lord. Whatever work you do must be converted into divine work. It must be transformed into worship. You must question every action you undertake and ask yourself, will it lead me towards the goal? When you see the Lord everywhere in everyone, then you will be doing everything with God consciousness. All the lights or energies in the body originate from the one divine light coming from God. They are all the reflections of the inner light of the Atma, which is the effulgence of the Supreme Lord. Similarly, All the light shining in individual beings come from that one light of the divinity, the one Atmic light pervading everywhere. You should always have this in your consciousness. You are able to see the external body with its features, but since you cannot directly see the Atma, you have not developed the right understanding of the infinite splendor of the Lord, who abides as the indweller in all beings. Consider a small example for this. Everything comes from the one indwelling divinity. There may be a great downpour. Huge torrents of water will be flowing from the trees. Water will be coming from the roof and the rain gutters. It will be coming from the overhangs. It will be spilling over from the roof of the adjoining house and running off from there only your house. It will be flooding the ground all around, causing rushing rivulets and streams. The water will be everywhere and will seem to be coming from so many different sources, but every drop of all this water can only have originated from the sky above. Similarly, all this speech, all this strength, all this beauty, all these skills in whomsoever they appear are all coming from only the one source, the one divinity pervading everywhere. You have to recognize the unity which underlies all these different traits. Once you have a firm grasp of this unity, all diversity will disappear. And once the diversity disappears, the desires will also disappear. Then when desires goes and the attraction to worldly objects goes with it, there will be no more room for repulsion and dislike leading to anger. Therefore, when you gain divine wisdom, you conquer desire and anger. It is through spiritual practice, particularly through inner inquiry, that you will be able to realize the unity and enjoy the unity which is always within you. This yearning to gain the light of divine wisdom, to see the one in the many, is expressed in the great prayer. From the unreal, lead me to the real. From darkness, lead me to the light. From death, lead me to immortality. Om peace, peace, peace. Astuma sadgamaya tamsuma jyotirgamaya mriturma mritgamaya. Om shanti, shanti, shanti. Whatever work you do, if you do it for the sake of the Lord and offer it to the Lord, then the work takes on a sacred value. Anything that becomes associated with the Lord thereby becomes sacred and highly potent. Consider, for example, an ordinary rat, which is a despicable thing. If you see a rat inside your house, you take a stick and try to kill it or set a trap to destroy it. When you see it, you feel revulsion. But traditionally in India, the rat has been associated with a particular form of the divinity, Lord Ganesha, who is the embodiment of divine wisdom. The rat is Ganesha's vehicle, which carries Ganesha around. Now, if you are a devotee of Ganesha and you see images of the rat associated with Ganesha, you revere it as the sacred instrument of the Lord. What is the reason for this? The high value that the rat carrying Ganesha has been given, able to obtain is due to association with this represent of representation of the divinity. Similarly, when you come across a snake, you may feel some fear and go to get a stick to drive it away. Or you may get a snake charmer to catch hold of it. But when the same snake adorns the neck of Lord Shiva, you worship it and offer it your prayerful salutations. What is the reason for this? The reason is that it has offered itself to the Lord and serves Him alone. Therefore, it has also become divine like the Lord. Even if it is a poisonous snake, once it has offered itself to God, it acquires fame and nobility. Association with the divine makes you divine. Once upon a time, Lord Vishnu sent a message to Lord Shiva. He sent the message through Garuda, the eagle, which is Vishnu's vehicle. Garuda came to Shiva, flapping its wings. When the snake, which was adorning Shiva, caught a little feel of the wind which was being produced by the flapping of Garuda's wings, it started hissing. Although an eagle is the deadly enemy of snakes, and a snake would normally slink away when an eagle comes near. Now this snake began hissing at Garuda. It had the courage to do this because of the great strength it got by virtue of the position it occupied around the neck of the Lord. When this snake fearlessly continued hissing, Garuda said, "O snake, you are there around the neck of Lord Shiva. Therefore, I must excuse you, but just come aside a little. Come away from there for a moment. The instant the snake leaves its position, it becomes a meal for the eagle. As long as it remains in its position, it gains great strength because of its nearness to divinity. Truly, the only I-ness that is acceptable to when you link your I with the Lord and when you say, I am one with the Lord. If instead you give up your nearness and dearness to the Lord and ego takes hold of you, then you become very mean and weak and vulnerable. If it is just a small thing, a valueless thing, once it takes shelter in the Lord, its value will be greatly increased. An ordinary stone may be lying in the street, but when a sculptor comes and shapes it into a sacred form, it is revered and worshipped in the temple. You can reflect on the extraordinary value you will gain when you associate yourself with the divinity and become one with it. There is no possibility whatsoever of any kind of smallness finding a place in divinity. In the Rama story, we have the occasion when Sita, Rama's wife, had been kidnapped by the demon king Ramana and kept captive in his palace. At the time, Ramana was suffering great mental anguish, even though 10 months had elapsed since she had been abducted. Sita would not yield to him. She would not even utter a word to Ramana. Whatever threats he made against her, she remained totally indifferent to him. This fact was noted by Ramana's wife, who went to her husband and tried to correct him. She said, Ramana, you have infinite powers. You have done a great deal of penance. You are an extraordinary devotee of Lord Shiva. You have acquired extraordinary powers to disguise yourself. You went disguised as a mendicant to take on whatever form you want. Why haven't you? You went disguised as a mendicant to abduct Sita. You have the power to go in any disguise, whatever, and appear in any form. Since you can take on whatever form you want, why have not you gone to her in the form of Rama? Then Sita would have immediately accepted you. Why have you not done this? Ravana told his wife, if I were to disguise myself as Rama and take on his sacred forms, I would not have been able to retain such lustful desires. When you become one with the divinity, all your little mean thoughts and ideas will vanish. They can no longer come and disturb your tranquility. Therefore, Krishna told Arjuna, when you are fighting the battle, fight, but while fighting, think of me. That is the proper way of discharging your duty. In that way, you will be upholding the high ideals of protecting righteousness, and you will be setting a good example for others. You will also gain a great deal of renown. If you offer everything to the divinity, you will be successful in every endeavor. To do this, you must gain control of the senses. Slowly but surely, you must exercise control over your senses or sense organs until they come under your complete control. Then you will be able to realize your full potential as a human being. Then also you will have developed equal mindedness and you will be called a truly wise man. Now you are still living with so many attachments. When you are so bound up, how can you develop equanimity? Equanimity. You are keeping inner peace far away from you. All these relationships and associations that you are cultivating are constantly changing. They are impermanent and cannot possibly help you in the end. Recognize the truth which is permanent. Attach yourself to the divinity. It is ever with you. It will never leave you. The three words, the gross, the subtle, and the causal. All the myriad objects you see in the world are just combinations of the five elements. Everything without exception is made up of five elements, and only the five elements. There is no sixth element to be found anywhere. Embodiments of love. There are three types of species which can also be considered as universal worlds. They are the gross physical universe and subtle universe of the mind, and the subtlest and the most pervasive of all three referred to as the causal universe. Beyond these and serving as the basis for all three of them is the transcendental, the divine principle, the Atma, the supreme itself, supreme self. The five elements, gross and subtle. A devotee who is anxious to know the divine principle and merge with it should have an understanding of these three universes. The first of these, the gross physical universe, is made up of five great elements, that is, ether, air, fire, water, and earth. Ether, which is also called space, is the first of all the five elements. It is all pervasive and very subtle. It does not have any specific attributes except sound. After that comes air. Air can be felt, but it cannot be seen. It has only two attributes, sound and touch. Next is fire. Fire can be seen. It is denser than air. It has three attributes, namely sound, touch, and form. Fire can be seen. It is denser than air. It has three attributes, namely sound, touch, and form. Following fire, there is water. Water is still more dense, and like fire, it can be seen by the naked eye. It can also be tasted. Water has four attributes, namely sound, touch, form, and taste. Earth, the last and the densest of all the elements, have five attributes, namely sound, touch, form, taste, and smell. You can see that the last three elements, fire, water, and earth, have form. The first two, ether and air, have other qualities but no form. All things found in the physical world are impermanent and subject to continuous change. In time, all objects undergo complete modification from one name and form to another, and then to still another, and so on. In the physical universe, everything is in constant motion. Let us inquire deeper into the nature of physical objects made up of these five elements. Consider the various atoms which exist in a given place and a given time. They will comprise, comprise the various objects which appear there at that moment. As the atoms move and change their position, the forms they make up also change. The atoms in all the objects undergo such rapid change in position that it is hard to say when a particular change has taken place in an object. There is an ongoing process of change. All the objects made up of three, these changing atoms will be changing their forms continuously with time. The atoms which make up the human body, like the atoms in any other form, change every moment, causing the body to undergo modification. All these different changes are very much like waves, such as the waves you find in the ocean. For the waves in the ocean, there is no beginning or end. The drops of water in one wave get merged into the next wave. The waves in which those drops have been merged again get merged into other waves, and so on. This process of forms changing and merging goes on continuously. This is the very nature of the physical universe. Life is a series of waves. Humanity can also be described as a series of waves, and other living beings such as animals and birds can be thought of as other waves. plants can also be thought of as waves, as can the insects and crawling things. The demonic forces can be described as still other waves, and the divine forces are yet other waves. In nature, it is impossible to say what aspect of any wave will merge with any other wave. Therefore, just as drops of one wave in the ocean will be mingled with and get merged into another wave, so also you may find that a wave containing human characteristics may merge into another wave containing characteristics of other living things. It is one continuous process of change and modification. In this way, life itself can be described as a series of waves. In the same way that the body undergoes change, the mind also undergoes a change. Human nature is associated with the thinking process, which is the result of a continuous string of thoughts. These thought processes are all impermanent, they constantly undergo change. We see that everything comprising human life is undergoing change unless you are able to recognize the six principal types of changes which occur in life, namely birth, growth, maturity, decline, degeneration, and death. You will be deluded into thinking that life is permanent. The root cause of such lack of understanding is ignorance, which gives rise to the ego and egoistic feelings of self delusion. The physical universe contains billions of suns, each with its own world. There are countless planets, big and small, and innumerable beings. In this entire vast universe, the Earth is smaller than even a tiny drop on this earth. India is just a little country. In this little country, there is a small state. In this small state is a very little district. In the little district, there is just a minor village. In this minor village, there is an insignificant little house, and in this little house, there sits a very small body. Is not it ludicrous to think that such a small body could ever feel egoistic and blow up with self-importance considering its minute size in this huge universe? When you think of this world and your own place in it, you can see that physically you are the merest speck in that vast totality. Can such a tiny speck ever hope to understand the totality? Can a mere little ant ever hope to measure the whole ocean? And yet this ocean itself is constantly undergoing change, and so does the whole earth, and so does everything else in the physical universe. The world in which you are living is completely temporary and transient. How can an insignificant temporary thing living in a transitory world try to understand the infinite, limitless permanent entity? To understand the permanent entity, you must occupy a permanent place within the permanent entity. Body, personality, and individuality are all temporary. They can be compared to a mirage. Man is trying to quench his thirst from a mirage. A mirage appears to be made up of water, but there is no real water. There are no clothes can be wetted from a mirage. No bucket can be filled with there. You can never slake your thirst there. In the same way, your body and your individual nature can never satisfy your thirst for the true joy that you are seeking. But for the divine principle, the world is totally inert. The whole vast physical world is something like an atom in the mental world, just as your body is like an infinitesimal atom in the universe. But in this incredible huge mental world is itself only the size of a mere atom in the causal world. The physical world, being made up of five gross elements, can be apprehended by the five senses of perception. But since everything in the physical world is made up of the five elements, and only the five elements, this world is totally inert and insentient. Here, the divine principle is inherent in it. This divine principle is also to be found in the mental world. Since the mental world is made up of same five elements in their subtle aspects, this world is also inert and insentient. But just as the divine principle as indweller is inherent in the inert body activating it, and it is inherent in the inert mind which vitalizing it, so also it is inherent in these inert physical and mental world, energizing and vitalizing them. The divine principle which brings energy and vitality to the physical and mental world shines forth most splendidly from the causal world and subtlest of these vast universes. To understand this process, consider the reflection in a mirror. The image or the reflection has no independent existence of its own. It can shine and the seen only when the object which is being reflected is luminous, and it can move only when the same object being reflected moves. All the apparent luster of things making up the world arises from the causal world and is then reflected by the mental and physical worlds which act as mirrors. Just as the effulgence of the sun gets reflected by the moon, the effulgence present in the causal state gets reflected in the subtle mental state and the gross physical state. Now, suppose you wanted to decorate the reflection which you see of yourself in a mirror. Could you do it so that you would remain there permanently? When you see your face in the mirror, could you paint a dot on the forehead of your image in the mirror and keep it there? No, it would be a futile effort. If you were to paint a dot on the mirror where the center of your forehead is on your image, then as soon as you move, the image would also move, and the dot which was formerly on the center of your forehead would now before your ear. Whenever you moved to one side, the image would also move to one side, and the dot would no longer be in the center of the image. Then, is there any way that you can put a dot on your forehead of your image in the mirror so that it will remain there no matter what happens? Yes, you must put the dot on you, the object which is being reflected. Then you can move in any direction or even turn the mirror to one side or the other, and the dot would not move on your image. Here is a small story which will illustrate this principle. The artist who tried to capture the image of the Lord. There was once a world famous artist. He had an extraordinary talent for figure and portrait painting. He came to Krishna in his capital city of Dwarka and wanted to paint Krishna's portrait. With a beaming smile, Krishna said, "Well, if you want to paint my image, you can certainly do so. Tell me what I should do." The artist requested, "Swami, if you would kindly just sit still for an hour in the same place. I will draw an outline and then later on I will fill in the details." Krishna sat down on for the artist and remained without moving. The artist made some preliminary sketches. After a while he portrayed at Krishna's feet and said, "Swami, I am done now." Smiley Krishna asked, "Where are you going to show the picture?" The artist answered, "Swami, by tomorrow at this time I should have completed it." Throughout the night, he worked untiringly on this difficult task of accurately painting a likeness of the Lord on canvas. When the picture was done the next morning, the artist was extremely pleased with his work. He covered the painting with a beautiful cloth and brought it to Krishna. But when the cloth was removed, it was seen that in the intervening 24 hours, the form of Krishna had undergone a remarkable change. The artist put the portrait directly alongside Krishna. He looked at the picture and then looked at Krishna. He realized that there was very little resemblance between the two. Krishna also looked at the painting and pointed out, my dear fellow, there seem to be a number of defects. The artist said, please forgive me, Swami, please give me another chance. Let me try again and I will do better. It went on like this for 10 days. Each day the artist did his work over again, but it was impossible to get a proper picture. Now the artist began to feel ashamed. He decided it would be best if he just disappeared from there. And so he hurriedly left the city. On the way, says Narada happened to meet the artist departing from the city. Narada asked the artist, you seem quite disturbed. Tell me what is making you so unhappy. The artist explained to him all that had happened. Arda told the artist, well, Krishna is a master actor and a master director. He is enacting this whole drama. Using your method, you will never be able to get a true likeness of him. But if you really want to succeed, then listen to my words and follow them implicitly. The artist agreed to do exactly as Narada instructed. He returned to Dwarka and the very next day went to Krishna carrying with him a picture covered with a fine cloth. He told Krishna, Swami, I have finally been able to bring you your exact picture. Please have a look. This will always give you the correct likeness of you. Whatever changes you come into your expression and form, the image that is seen here will show all the changes faithfully. Then he got ready to remove the covering cloth and said, please accept this as my best picture of you. When the cloth came away, it revealed a clean mirror. If you want to paint a portrait of the Lord who is permanent with the temporary materials like brushes, paint, etc., you will not be able to succeed. In the physical universe, everything is temporary, all forms are constantly undergoing changes. Such transient forms cannot give a proper vision of the permanent Lord. If you want to have a clean and unchanging vision of the Lord, you will be able to obtain it only in the clean mirror, which is your own purified heart. To reach the permanent, go beyond the impermanent. Trying to know the Lord through the changing forms found in the gross physical universe is a type of delusion. The permanent, unchanging entity cannot be known through impermanent, changing forms. Whatever knowledge you get this way will be impermanent. Whatever joy you may derive from trying to know Him in this way will only be temporary. The basic nature of these five elements is that they are constantly undergoing changes. To reach the state of the permanent, you have to go beyond these five elements and their changing forms. Suppose you go on a pilgrimage to a temple to have a vision of the Lord. Coming there, you may have had to undergo a great many difficulties. Then, when you finally arrive there and have a chance to go into the temple, you stand before the likeness of the Lord with your heart filled with yearning. You look at the sacred image, but immediately you find yourself closing your eyes as you experience the intense feelings of being in the divine presence. Spontaneously, you close your eyes and turn your vision inward. Having gone to so much trouble to get there to have a look at the holy image, why, once you are there, do you close your eyes and look within yourself? What is the inner significance of this? You turn your eyes inward because you realize that in order for you to get a permanent and true vision of the Lord, you have to look inside your heart. You know intuitively that the pictures taken in through your eyes will remain fleeting impressions superimposed on your impermanent thoughts after having registered these visual visual images in the thoughts. They must be fixed so that they can become unchanging impressions in the heart. Although you cannot get a direct experience of the divinity in the physical universe, the indirect vision of the divinity that you can get there will give you some sacred experiences. Just because the physical world is transient and changing, you should not renounce these feelings of connectedness with the divinity, even though they may be short lived. These feelings will give you some temporary joy. First, you will have to secure this temporary joy and then slowly and gradually make the journey towards permanent joy. This journey will take you through the three worlds, the physical and the mental and the causal, going from the grossest to the most subtle. It is only in the causal that you will find the image of real truth. The causal arises from the transcendental state which is interpenetrates these three worlds and is beyond them. That transcendental source which illuminates the causal is the unchanging light of the Atma. You are not just one but three. You can get some understanding of all this by contemplating the statements that Swami has often made. You are not one person but three. The one you think you are, the one that others think you are, and one you really are. The one you think you are, the body is ephemeral and untrue. Whatever life you are living today, whatever experiences you are having today, they are all transient, but the body and its activities are temporary and associated with the physical world. Now, when others think of you, they do not know only the terms of your physical makeup, but also in terms of your personality and character traits. There is a more mentalized image of you, therefore, the one that others think you are relates to the mind and the mental world, which is also changing and untrue. But the one you really are is the Atma, the unchanging truth, shining in the causal state. A piece of ice in your hand will start melting until it becomes water again. Why is this so? Because melting is the very nature of ice. Similarly, changeability or transitoriness is the very nature of everything that appears in the physical world. Even while you are trying to understand the gross physical universe, you have to think of the finer, subtler inner worlds. The physical world is at the gross level. You experience it during the waking state. The same thing in a subtle form is associated with the mental world, which you experience in the dream state. In the waking state, you are able to see objects because of the light emanating from the sun and the moon. But the sun and the moon, your waking state are not present in the dream state. It is only the light which emanates from the mental world which helps you to see the objects of the world. The moment you push aside the gross, the subtle light becomes evident inside. During the day, you are not able to see the stars, but just because you cannot see them does not mean that they are not there. Stars continue to shine even in the daytime, and yet, because the sun's effulgence is so great, you cannot see them. As the light of the sun becomes dim at dusk, you begin to see the shining stars. Behind the gross, the subtle, behind the subtle, the causal. Behind the outer, grosser experiences lies the subtler, finer experience from which the outer has sprung, and within the subtle can be found the template for the gross. Even in the childhood of great spiritual teacher, you can see the mark of one whose mission it is bring light to mankind. And when you apprehend this underlying subtle quality of that being, you clearly see how it has shaped every aspect of that little life through its outer manifestations and through every major period of life. There is another state that transcends both the gross and the subtle, that is the causal. The causal state does not have any movement, it does not undergo any change. Within it is found, be found the self-effulgent light of Atma. It is because of this all-pervasive light of the Atma shining in and through the causal state that you are able to experience the mental and the physical worlds. If there were no subtle mental world, there could be no gross physical world for you. But if there were no causal, there would be neither subtle mental nor gross physical world for you. To realize your divine state, your journey has to take you from the physical through the mental to the causal. Your truth is rooted in the causal. You must use the physical to reach the mental and the mental to reach the causal. Ultimately, it is the light of the Atma, the individual, which activates and visualizes all of these states of experience. The Atma is the source and the substratum of all three worlds. In the ocean, you will find waves and swells and foam on the surface, large scale currents below the surface, and the stillness of the deep ocean regions far below. The waves and foam, the currents, and the deep ocean waters are not different. Water is the common element which interprets all of them, but it appears as if waves, the currents, and the deep ocean are different. In the physical world, also you have to discover the common element that underlies all experience and unifies the physical, the mental, and the causal worlds. You can associate these three universes with three states of consciousness. You can think of the waking state as the physical, the dream state as the mental, and the deep sleep state as the causal. Beyond these three states, interpreting them and common to all of them is fourth state, that is the superconscious state, the transcendental state, the unconscious state of the deep sleep is associated with the causal. It has a very profound quality of peace, but by itself, the deep sleep state will not provide you with a permanent experience of real bliss. The bliss is there, but you are not conscious of it. It is only after you come back to the waking state from deep sleep that you remember the serene feeling of total rest you were enjoying. However, in the superconscious state, you will be able to enjoy eternal peace and bliss and be fully conscious of it always. So here I ends this 12th video. Sairam, thank you so much for watching this, for listening this great video. Please like, comment, and share the video and subscribe my channel. Thank you so much, my dear.